Hey, Kaela.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to My Career Brand's Coach Snippets. Today we were with Kaela Hindle, and Kaela is our expert here at My Career Brand on working with recruiters, and she's going to be talking about how to prepare for an interview. Thanks very much, Kaela.
Thank you, Craig. So I wanted to focus on going into interview with a recruitment consultant and the importance of making sure that you're really well prepared for the position, for the interview, sorry. Obviously, a lot of the process when you go in to meet with the recruitment consultant will be about you understanding and getting a better insight into the day-to-day requirements of the role. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your research before you come along to that meeting. So as the first point says here, research who you're meeting, know how long they've been in their current role, and that will help you to get an insight as to, their understanding of the market and how they're going to be able to assist you with your job search. Make sure that you've reviewed the role description for the position that you're being interviewed for, if you are being interviewed for a specific role, and also do your research on the business and the industry.
So when you talk about researching the person and so on, where can you find that information? All of this research and so on. What are the areas that you recommend people or the resources people should use to do that?
Yeah. Excellent question, Craig. LinkedIn is an absolutely fabulous source of information for all things role related and company related. You can find out so much information about the company, about the industry, and also about the individual that you're meeting with through LinkedIn. So definitely check the LinkedIn profiles and the company page on LinkedIn too, but also company websites. Lots of the time there will be information about the organisation, obviously, but a lot of the time there's information on a careers page too.
And I think in public companies in particular, where the board reports and so on are published, AGMs and so on,
Absolutely.
Looking at the strategy of the organisation and being able to tie what you're able to deliver, particularly at a senior level, but even at a more junior level too, to be aware of the strategy and direction of the organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. The more insight that you can get before you go along to that first meeting, the more the better prepared you will appear to be, or the more interested and engaged in the position you can demonstrate you are if you've done that research.
Yeah. Okay. And I see here you've also got considering the challenges that the role will address. Can you take us through that? What do you mean? But how does a candidate going into an interview work with that? How can they bring that to life?
So if you're going into an interview with a recruitment consultant, typically this will be your first kind of face-to-face engagement with the organisation. So a lot of that meeting will be about helping you to understand what those challenges are. But a lot of the time you will be able to access a job description or, reach out to people that you might know just to understand as much as you can before you go into the meeting what the specific key challenges are that role is there to address. As you move further through the process, you'll get better insight into this and will be able to shape your answers to really specifically demonstrate your ability to target those challenges based on experience that you've had previously where you've done similar things. But certainly just ensuring that before you go into any meeting that you've tried to understand as much as you can about the organisation and its the challenges that role is there to face will make sure that you're telling the right stories when you're in that interview.
And I guess one of the things that's really important, we covered off a little bit earlier about the person who's interviewing you, the hiring manager, and so on. When you've got a panel interview, I guess that introduces a whole new dynamic, doesn't it? Because there's going to be multiple channels, perhaps each of them having different challenges within their own area and wanting to see how this person is going to help them.
Absolutely. I have a whole separate coach snippet on how to prepare for for a panel interview. So so watch out for that one. But yeah, absolutely. It's about understanding the perspective, I suppose, of the different stakeholders that are in the interview with you, and making sure that you are structuring your answer in such a way that it's going to appeal as broadly as possible to all the panel members that are in the room, and you're not going to say something that's going to resonate well with one but alienate another.
Yeah, how do people prepare? I mean, I think it's a good thing to have some nerves, when you're going into an interview, and we're going to have some anxiety. And I think, often we're told, oh, they're overprepared, or they came across as too rehearsed, or you appeared nervous. What's your general sort of comment around that?
It's a challenging one, because I think for me, I would rather meet somebody who was overprepared than underprepared. And it is a risk that particularly in an interview situation, which lots of people feel anxious about. If you've been really well prepared, you can come across as sounding a little bit like a robot. However, I think that's preferable to sounding underprepared and not being able to share your capabilities or your experience or the value that you can add. But thinking about, I guess, just thinking about the examples that you want to share, which will most align to the challenges that the role is going to face, and just thinking about what the circumstances were of that situation that you were in and how you address those challenges, rather than being really prescriptive in terms of your preparation, will help you to be a bit more fluid when it comes to the interview.
So preparing for an interview, or being well prepared for an interview, can also address perhaps the areas of anxiety and so on that might come in by having some confidence that you've done all you can. And you may have the answers that are required at an interview as well. Yeah,
I think it will help you to be confident that you're putting your best foot forward, definitely, and eliminate some of those early feelings of anxiety.
Okay.
What we tend to find is that once people get into the interview and, have broken the ice a little bit, they kind of find their feet a little bit more and speak a little bit more freely. So it's just kind of that initial, if you can appease some of that initial anxiety by making sure that you're ready to share your stories, that will be beneficial.
This topic of preparing for an interview, Kaela, does that also include researching the organisation, the culture of the organisation, how they dress, whether it's collar and tie, whether it's polo shirts, whether it's t-shirt and jeans, whatever? How does that work?
Yeah, look, that's really important, is to make sure that you are attired appropriately. You wouldn't walk into a factory in a suit, and you wouldn't walk into a bank in casual attire. I think understanding what is appropriate for the industry and the role that you're interviewing in, and making sure that you're dressing appropriately to match that environment, will make you feel comfortable when you sit down in the interview, if you're dressed the same as everybody else that that's in the room with you.
A little bit like going to a party or a social event, isn't it? So it's like understand where you're turning up to.
Don't be the only one in fancy dress. That's that will definitely not start well.
Yeah, exactly. Mind you, there was that story a little while ago, wasn't there? There was the guy turned up in a clown, or hired a clown to go to an exit interview. I guess you don't want to do that, so it'll definitely be an exit interview.
Yeah. I think he had a specific strategy in mind, didn't he?
I think he might have done as well. Hey, now we're just moving on now to demonstrating the competencies and so on. Can you take us through that and what you mean by competencies?
Yeah, so typically when an organisation looks to hire a person or considers a problem that they need to solve, they will pull together a job description, and on that job description they'll detail what the day-to-day responsibilities of the role are, but also some of the competencies that they're looking for, which underpin or enhance your capability to deliver on those day-to-day responsibilities. So that might be, it might be your ability to focus. It might be having a
Like
brain freeze.
financial competencies, leadership competencies, all
Yeah,
of those domains, that
yeah,
are required to actually do the job in the way that the organization needs it to be executed in.
yeah, exactly. What we do at MyCareerBrand when we are working with our clients is we get them to link we get them to work through some of their key achievements, or all of their key achievements, and what competencies they used to enable those key achievements and to make those key achievements happen. And what that means is that for our clients, when it comes to them doing their interviews, when they're asked a question like, tell me about a time that you have used your initiative, they will immediately and very clearly be able to link their competencies to examples. So it's about figuring out how you can tell stories that demonstrate that you have those competencies or capabilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also I think we were talking earlier today about telling a story or making it compelling by bringing it to life rather than it be by rote. Or textbook answer, which the interviewer could just as easily find on Google. So it's about bringing that competency to life too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think drawing on what you've learned from those experiences or those situations, and being able to demonstrate being vulnerable enough to say that didn't go very well, I'm not going to do that again. And what I've learned from that experience is da 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 da. That really leaves gold on the table for an interviewer. And it also gives an interviewer the confidence that you have been in that situation before. You're not going to be learning new things on their watch, and that you are capable of delivering against delivering to the problems that they're there to address.
So, I mean, obviously we're learning all the time in a role, and if we're not learning, then what are we doing? But I guess what you're referring to more is that learning at the expense of being able to execute to the primary responsibilities and the requirements of the role, where that would be negatively impacted. So, I get that. Really important. Just in terms of the competencies and so on, I know at MyCareerBrand we do spend a lot of time, don't we, on working with the individual to understand what it is that they're bringing to the table, and what their brand is, what that means, and being really laser sharp on that and being able to communicate that. So going into an interview, as a past recruiter and hiring manager and so on, Kaela, how important is that for you, sitting on the other side of the table interviewing the person, to understand what they're actually bringing in that laser sharp approach, if you like, from them?
It's really important. And I think in this market where there are unemployment is climbing, and there are lots of job seekers all applying for the same role. So I think often it can come down to not just your capability and the value that you can add, but also your attributes and your motivational alignment to a role. The candidates or the job seekers that I'm seeing who are finding opportunities for themselves in this market are the ones that are working hard to find opportunities, but then when they find them, they're making sure that they are, the interview that when they attend the interview, that they're able to really clearly articulate why they want the role, that their behavioural attributes position them well to do the job, and also that they have the skills and the capabilities to add value to the challenges that the organisation is facing. So it's critical in this market to be really clear on that. I think if you are vague on that, particularly at the point where you're meeting a recruiter, if a job seeker is not really clear on that, then you're absolutely at a disadvantage, because there will be other job seekers who are nailing it, and you're going to be competing with them.
I know, obviously, we're professional coaches, and our job is to coach people. But how important do you think it is for candidates to prepare for an interview, with somebody who's independent and so on, practice interviewing and so on, that sort of thing?
I think what it means, and I've been in this situation myself as a recruiter who's recruited squillions of roles and conducted thousands of interviews. I know when I've gone into an interview myself, I've often sat down and just kind of gone bleh, because you've not talked through and you've not, specifically spoken through your examples of the situations that you've been in. So, you think if you're telling a funny story, you tell that funny story a few times, and as you tell that funny story, each time you tell it a little bit more differently, and each time it just gets a little bit better because you figure out where to kind of place your focus. And it's the same with interviewing. If you are able to kind of practice your stories with somebody who can be impartial and who can critique your answers, it will mean that when you go into your actual interview, that you've just kind of fine-tuned it a little bit, so that when you tell that story, it will come across as well as it can, rather than you kind of stumbling through your answer.
Yeah, I guess that's why, at MyCareerBrand, we place a lot of importance on that independent review, if you like. So the primary coach is not going to be your interview skills coach, because that coach already knows quite a bit about you, and the risk is that they'll read subconsciously into that interview and join the dots, and not be able to give the critique that somebody coming in afresh would, who potentially just doesn't get the answer, so doesn't get the clarity they're looking for. So I think that independence, and that's why we always have an independent coach separate to the primary coach doing the interview skills work with a candidate or a client. Well,
you are evaluating then as a recruiter would do. You're not basing your evaluation on any previous insight. It's all about first impressions, which that is so important.
It is. Hey, Kaela, thanks so much for that. Is there anything else you'd like to add just to close things off?
Be well prepared. I think just make sure that you get a good night's sleep, that you're dressed appropriately, that you arrive in the city or at the location of the interview at least half an hour early. Aim to be there well before time, because you don't want to arrive in a lather of sweat, stressed out or hungover. You're not going to perform at your best. So no wild parties the night before. Give yourself plenty of time to get to the meeting, and make sure you do your research.
Yep. No coffee breath.
No coffee breath.
Right. Or no booze breath. Okay, no. Kaela, hey, thank you so much for that. That was really insightful. And hey, look, anybody who's listening, watching to this coach snippet, even if you're looking at an interview now in a couple of weeks' time, I'd highly encourage you to just get somebody to help you out. As Kaela mentioned before, that independence, that practicing is really important. So again, thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and we'll be back another time with some more coach snippets. Thank you very much.
Thank you.